Hi, everybody. Welcome to this episode of You Don't Know Jack. I'm Dr. Jack Groppel, and with my colleague and dear friend, Dr. Haley Perlus. Haley's doctorate in sports psychology, which is going to be a big deal today because we're going to talk about something that's really near and dear to my heart today. And that is the idea of we can call it self-talk, we can call it affirmations, it's the words we say to ourselves, and especially even before competition or practice or during, and how we literally train our brain. And I want to start that this is kind of a biblical principle almost. I mean, in the book of Proverbs, it says, you know, as a person thinks, so they are. And the idea that our thoughts are huge. I mean, our thoughts guide our attitudes and our beliefs. Well, then our beliefs drive our actions. So, and then our actions compound over time, and then the brain learns that's how we do things. And it's just really interesting to me. And that's why I wanted to really bring Haley with her, scientific background in this whole field into this. But the idea that self-talk is so powerful, and I'm just going to use a couple of examples, and then I'm going to turn it over to Haley to take us through the science of it a little bit. Just recently, I was watching a tennis tournament, and many of you know that my background is steeped in tennis, but I've had the great fortune to coach in sport, in many sports, in the arts, in business. I've been able to coach, so I've been a coach my whole life, and this whole area of self-talk and affirmations has been really meaningful. So I saw this tournament, and this young man who's quite a good tennis player. It was the very first game, and I'd been working with him for a while. I know him quite well. Very first game of the match. He was receiving serve. He was not serving. He's a big guy, 6'5", huge serve. He's receiving. And it's like the third point of the entire match, third point of the first game. And I'm standing quite a ways away, and I'm with another tennis coach who knows this young man well too. And after the point, I didn't see what happened. He lost the point, obviously, but he turned around and he slammed the ball back into the backdrop. And you could hear him say, I don't even know what he said, but obviously it was negative. And I said to the coach who was with me, I said, what in the world happened there? I mean, it's the third point of the whole match, and he's that kind of behavior. And it was, and then he won the match. It was a close match. He was the better player. He won. But afterwards, I went, what happened in that first game? And he said, I don't know. He says, I just felt like I missed an easy shot and I was just frustrated. And then I'm going, well, if that's how you're expressing yourself, we kind of need to work on that a little bit. Now, likewise, let's have a little fun with this, everybody, before I turn it over to Dr. Perlis for her wisdom. If let's say basketball, we all know basketball, and we know the famous problems that great players have had with free throw shooting. Now, think of a free throw. You're all by yourself at the line. There might be millions watching on television, but you're all by yourself. And you shoot the ball and that's why it's called a free throw, because nobody's going to around you. You are free to shoot the ball. You're in the gym and you can make 100 in a row, 100 in a row. And you go, I got this. Oh, I so got this. I got this. I'm really got this. Then you get into the game and suddenly time runs out of the clock, but you just got fouled and your team's losing by one and you've got two free throws. I mean, you not only could tie the game, you could win the game now. And you step up to the line and you're all you're doing is thinking about those 100 free throws. I got this. And then for whatever reason, it's like you get up like this and the ball clanks off the rim. And now you've got the second one. And now you go, but I made 100 yesterday. I made 100. And your voice is cracked. Your inner self, your inner talk is cracking a little bit. And then you clank it and you lose the game. And you go, I don't understand. I made 100 yesterday in a row. Well, think about what the self-talk became. First of all, you didn't practice the free throws under any kind of pressure at all. Now you're under immense pressure. But the self-talk was, I got this, I got this. Maybe I don't have it. And you can just totally see the self-talk creep in. You can see it. I've seen it so many times in a penalty kick, in soccer, football, in a situation that's self-paced, a golf shot, a tennis serve. You could see it in someone's eyes when there's fear. And you know the self-talk is probably like the little engine that could. I think I can, I think I can, I think, and then suddenly things fall apart. So Haley, I'm going to stop there because I think that's a fairly robust introduction into the words we say, what we put into our mind, the training effect it might have, the way we train, and so on. Why don't you have a little fun with this and talk to us a little bit about the science around this, and then let's kind of riff a little bit on this because we've both got so much experience with this. Let's go.
I love that example, Jack, and it's true. It's I've got this, I've got this, and then it's don't miss this.
Oh, there you go. That's it exactly. I got this. I got this. Oh, better not miss this though. Oh.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's some great affirmations out there. There's some great slogans. Just do it. If only if it were that easy.
Hmm.
Because even though it's a great slogan, we actually have to go a little bit deeper and really believe the words we're using. And sometimes, if you just find something to believe in, then you can start believing more and more and more. But the I've got this, I've got this, I've done it a hundred times when no one's watching. I've done it a hundred times when it
Right.
doesn't matter. I've done it a hundred times, growing up. And then when it does matter, well, that self-talk won't work because you haven't trained it in that specific environment, in that specific situation. So even though you may say it, if you don't believe it, or if you don't believe some part of it, and then really, in my mind, direct your mind to one specific thing that you know you can trust. Because I've got this, I've got this, I've got this tells me nothing about, a specific tactic, strategy, or technique.
Hmm.
And so the I got this lets your mind just kind of stay in your mind and doesn't, and the way I like to think about it is kind of like this relay race. It's like my mind does the thinking. And then at one point, I have to pass the baton to my body to let my body go and do what I've been training it to do. But you have to use specific self-talk and specific affirmations to pass that baton. And if you don't, then it goes from I can, oh, but maybe I can't. And then your body doesn't get the baton and then it just freezes up and it misses.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to me. I mean, for example, the idea of overgeneralizing, for example. I mean, like you lose one match in tennis, or you lose one game in basketball, or you miss, maybe you only make 40% of your free throws when you know you should make 70 to 75% of your free throws. And you start, I mean, honestly, and we've both seen athletes say, I suck. They literally put themselves in a category of self-talk like that's demonstratively terrible. I mean, honestly, it's not only is it negative, it's just your like your identity is almost overgeneralizing what just happened to one event. And I can't tell you how many recreational tennis players, you know, I was pathetic today. That's literally the feedback. How'd you play today? I was pathetic. And I'm going, okay, that's fairly broad and deep and negative. Can you tell me more? Um, so talk to me about overgeneralizing and how you would help somebody get away from that idea of overgeneralizing and making such a big deal out of one event.
Well, we call that a distorted thought. We call that irrational thinking. So generalizing is one example. Catastrophizing is another example.
Another one I was going to talk about. Yeah, exactly.
Polarizing is another example. I'm either great or I suck. There's nothing in between.
How do we go through those? Well, let's go through those
Yeah.
individually. I think it would really help people.
Yeah. So generalizing would be that you're making this one moment basically mean something about your behavior in all moments.
I just want to stay with her for just a second because I'm sure that our listeners at some point they've either said this themselves, and I say this with respect, or they've heard someone say it because I've heard it a lot. I can't do anything right. And bless your heart, but we gotta catch ourselves if we say stuff like that.
Right.
Do you agree?
Absolutely. No, and the first piece is really identifying that, and one way to catch yourself is to have someone or to start training yourself is in those big statements. Just ask yourself, is that 100% the truth? Where is it not the truth? Where has it not been the truth?
And our listeners, people that have been listening to our podcast, they've heard this example, but I'm going to go back to it again. On the second day that my son and I were on Kilimanjaro and the clouds cleared, What I want everybody to understand is overgeneralizing might happen at any stage in our lives, no matter how well we're trained. But I remember very clearly, and our listeners have heard me say this. As soon as I saw the mountain, I went, "Well, there's no way. It's too far. It's too high." I mean, I'm already gassed, but I had to catch myself, and then I was able to get back in the moment. But so I think that's also, it's not like if you overgeneralize in a moment, that doesn't mean but if you learn to catch yourself, you can get back on track.
Well, not only do you get back on track, but then for future opportunities, maybe you can start to prevent it because you have the training. So maybe you will actually train yourself out of saying, I can't do anything.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if when the clouds cleared and I saw that peak, I don't know if you would have gotten any other response out of me. Maybe, oh crap. But I'm not so sure. I would have. I'm not. This is where your best friend says, "Just do it," and you go, "You get over here and do it." I mean, it's almost like we need to give ourselves a little grace on that. I don't know. It's just
Well,
funny.
no, but yeah, but the more you practice something and the more you train
Yeah.
something, the more you reduce the unhealthy behaviors, that you're looking to. In addition to that, the more you increase confidence in your abilities to
Mm.
to take on challenges, increase your ability to step up to the plate.
And that's interesting. The idea of increasing confidence. The repetition of success of quality practice, not quantity of practice, because you could be practicing the wrong thing.
Oh yeah,
Um, the idea of self-talk. I mean, that's the 100 free throws, and you're not practicing them the right way. You
right.
know,
And
that's
the
why I
way
I always love it when players put themselves under a little bit of pressure all the time.
Absolutely. And then what do you think about this? Because I also understand talk about giving yourself some grace. I don't think we're all going to be, I don't think anybody, I actually think if you say you're this person, I think you're lying or you're not real, or you're not really honest with yourself. We all have doubts.
Of course.
So to me, there's two parts to develop, the mental toughness around that. One is to do what you and I are talking about, which is to really catch yourself when you have irrational, distorted thoughts like generalizing or making things a catastrophe or all or nothing, that polarizing.
Anyway, it's catastrophe. That's where we're going next.
We're going next, but just irrational thoughts. But
Yeah.
the other way to train yourself is I think I will take pride in coming up with this term because I've never heard it elsewhere and I'm working with it. Doubt tolerance.
Ooh, I like that. I've never heard it.
Yeah, doubt and fear tolerance. But that is so that a lot of the people that I'm working with, of course, I'm working with them to gradually get to the I can and away from the I can't. But in addition, can you still kind of tune out the I can't, even though you haven't gotten to the I can yet? So it's almost like you're putting up a wall and still performing even though you hear it. And how do you do that? Well, um, right now it's actually quite prevalent in golf. So a lot of the golfers that I'm working with, whether they record their own voices or whether they have someone kind of whisper their negative doubts, their self-talk in their ear while they're trying to putt the ball or while they're trying to drive or take their irons out. And what they're learning to do is realize that it's just their thinking.
Yeah.
They don't have to believe everything they think. And so it's there, it's being heard, but it's not being integrated, it's not being internalized because then they still have their one swing thought. They still have their target. And so they're tolerating the doubt by just simply not giving it a lot of energy, but it's not going away. Someone or their own, they've got noise in the doubt and they're just learning to tolerate it and not give it energy and stay focused on their target.
I love that. I'm going to be selfish right now on behalf of our listeners, but one episode I'd like to do on this doubt tolerance,
Yeah.
and I'm going to have a lot of questions. I want
Yeah.
to learn. Being selfish on behalf of our audience. There you go.
Well, I'll take it because it's really exciting me and a lot of people in all aspects of life, whether it's work, relationships, or sport and performance and health. It's not, I think we have to understand, to your point, Jack, which is a great point, we have to give ourselves some grace. It's not always about being and thinking perfectly, and not always about thinking positively, because sometimes things just simply suck, but we can be productive in our self-talk.
And I think we can transition now to the catastrophic way of thinking. And I think I was blessed growing up being ignorant. I'm just going to be really honest with you that as everybody, I taught myself to play tennis, and I walked on and played at a Big Ten university. Probably couldn't do it in today's world. I don't think. But in those days, I was able to do it. But I think I was ignorant to pressure. Like I always viewed myself as the underdog. So when it comes to catastrophic thinking, where you think about the absolute worst case scenario, for me, there never was one. I didn't allow that. I wasn't even exposed to that. Like what would have been the worst case? Okay. I mean, I'm teaching myself. I'd rid myself of all the excuses because I didn't have a coach to blame. I didn't have anybody to blame. And the overgeneralization, what was I going to generalize toward? I mean, I think the ignorance was a blessing as I was growing up. Then it became then the pressure. Then I started to realize what pressure was, though. When you make the team and now you start playing for a university and you're representing your state university and you're at Ohio State and the match is dependent on you. There's a little bit of pressure there, you know, for a small town farm kid, and but the ignorance I think helped me. But let's talk a little bit about that catastrophic way of thinking where you might get invited to speak. We've used that before as an example, and you went, "Well, this isn't going to work. I can't do that. I just can't. I'll collapse. I'll fold." Just the worst case scenario. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Or something really, truly bad happens where I don't know, you get fired, you get divorced, you lose a loved one. And I fully understand, but in the moment, it is like life is over.
Yeah, got it.
And obviously we have to vent and endure that emotional
Mhm.
upset. But the catastrophizing will never let you get up. Like I remember when and maybe I've shared this before, it'll be quick, but I remember when I got divorced, it was devastating. No one in my family had been divorced. I was the first one of everyone that I could think of, and not supposed to be me. That's another type of distorted thinking where I think I'm different than anyone else, right? Which I've since learned that I'm not. But
Yeah.
so then it's just this devastation. And I'll never forget my father coming into my room when I was visiting them and I was crying, and he goes, "Cry so that you can then get up." And
Mm.
if you're constant, if you get stuck in the catastrophe, you'll never get up.
What great wisdom from your dad.
He's got a lot of them, but it was because it wasn't him telling me, "Come on, let's just roll up your sleeves and let's go. Like it's over, it's done. You've signed, you're moving on." It wasn't that, because I think that actually is doesn't work for a lot of people. You need the time to to be sad and be devastated, and you need a time. But if you live there because you're thinking it's because you're caught up in the catastrophe, you're not really looking at it the most effective way, the most productive way. You're making it become bigger than you are.
So for our listeners that want a little bit more on that whole area, we kind of talked about this in the episode we did on stress and recovery, where in grief, for example, it's okay to grieve, but a grief counselor doesn't want you to get stuck there. They don't want you to live there, to use your words. They want you to oscillate. So yeah, it's okay to grieve, but then laugh and then go back and grieve, and then be angry and then go back and grieve, and then go to a movie and laugh and then come back and grieve. But the idea of catastrophic thinking, I think a lot of people struggle with that. Like, I can't is the first words that come to their mind.
Your story, your self-talk is that it is bigger than you,
Mhm.
and you are screwed. You can't do anything about it because it is bigger than you, and you've actually taken the focus completely off of you. The only focus you put on yourself is that you lost. And so making the situation bigger than you are and only focus on how you lost, that is the creation of the catastrophe. But when you can say, let's be upset, and then then we're going to figure things out. And then we're going to get back up and we're
Mhm.
going to put the focus back on you and we're going to find something to believe in. And we're going to slowly but surely get ourselves back up where you start to realize what you're capable of step by step. But again, the focus is back on you in a productive way instead of focusing on the outside or all your weaknesses.
Yeah, I like what you've just done because I think a lot of people, when the catastrophic thinking enters, the people, their support system around them, they're very well meaning, but they'll say, "Oh, stop it. Like, come on." And instead of where you're talking about bit by bit, slowly, just expose yourself and try to just expose yourself to it a little bit by little bit. What we all hear around us, anybody that has catastrophic thinking, they hear, "Oh, suck it up. Come on. It's not that bad." But yet in their brain, it is that bad in that moment in time, to your point. I like that. I really like that strategy.
It's not about sucking up. Giving yourself some time and you may need support to say, okay, time's up. Let's go. Because that does happen, right? When talk about the oscillating, we're in that low negative and it's time to get up.
For sure. Okay, what about the perfectionist in people, the all or none kind of thinking? Like either it's going to be great or it's going to be bad. I mean, it's not, there's no gray area, there's no in between. It's either incredible or wow, it's bad, so bad. What about the perfectionism?
I'll never forget when I was young, like I was still doing my master's. So I was just starting out my consulting practice, and an athlete came to me for sports psychology, but she had a clinical psychologist that she was working with as well. And she said, just want you to know that I've been diagnosed with perfectionism.
That's great. How did you respond to that?
That will forever be your reason for why you didn't achieve the goals you set. And you're never going to fully realize what you could achieve and never really endure some real great satisfaction. And then I also pulled out the DSM-5, which is the psychological assessment. Couldn't find perfectionism in it.
So how did I'm fascinated. Obviously, this has to be anonymous, but how did that work out with that athlete? Were you able to help the athlete?
You know, way back then, I probably one of the first things I really believed in about my profession was I understand the want to be perfect. I want to be perfect. I strive to be perfect, but I believe there's a difference between striving for perfection and demanding it of yourself. And so I just helped her. I actually just introduced that fork in the road, if you will. Can you help me see the difference between demanding perfection and striving for perfection? And then we talked about how in sport, but I think in life, but in sport, that the best athletes are not the perfect athletes. In fact, I asked her to show me a perfect athlete and she couldn't. So the best athlete is not the perfect athlete, it's the one that best recovers.
Mm,
And why is it fair to this athlete to demand perfection when we can't find a single other human being out there that is perfect all the time? So why is that helping her? Except to make excuses for herself and to get out of the hard work and
mhm.
to not look in the mirror and roll up her sleeves and do the work that she's eventually actually going to be most proud of herself for doing. So to tie it all up, that's kind of where those conversations went.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you. The idea that if you don't get a handle on these things in your self-talk, that you get angry. And anger management then comes into play because the self-talk is so negative, and then you get angry. And we've all and the most famous athlete that this is, I mean, there's been so many testimonials done about this, but John McEnroe back in the day was so angry all the time. And we don't have to go into reasons why we think it was or anything, but let's just talk because you hear the people all the time that push back on all this. They say, well, you're telling me I shouldn't get angry because you don't want that image in my brain. But McEnroe did it just fine. And I mean, I have my thoughts about that, but the idea, when we're talking about the idea of replacing that negative image quickly with a positive image and reframing, and here he was in 20 seconds, he was extremely angry, and then within seconds he's hitting an ace serve. And everybody's going, well, maybe that's the secret. I have to get angry. And we both we know that does not work for most people at all. So what are your thoughts around that whole idea of anger? And then don't tell any stories on me because I'll tell my own story about my own
Okay, okay.
management because I know you love the story and I'll share it everybody.
I'm glad you told me that so that I don't give it away. I am curious, and I don't know. I mean, it's just a curiosity that probably a question that will never be answered. But I would love to know how he would have been, the athlete John McEnroe would have been without the anger, and just compare. I would have loved to have seen the two different approaches.
Publicly said he doesn't know because he didn't make the change, but he has publicly said that if he were able to probably get a handle on it, he probably could have won more Grand Slams. I mean, that's a pretty big statement from somebody that I could have won more big tournaments if I would have gotten a handle on it.
There are often times where, depending on the sport, but certainly even in business, I've got to be this mean. I've got to be this. They have to see me have these outbursts so that they know that it really matters.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes I actually, if I'm gonna be a little bit vulnerable here in my personal life with relationships, sometimes I think I'm being communicative and I'll say no, or I'll say that hurts my feelings, or I'll say, something and I thought I was clear, but it didn't really make an impact. And I wonder if I had an outburst, would that have made an impact?
Exactly, because when an outburst, I mean, let's talk about the science of it. Let's not condone one or the other, but the outburst could create thought interruption and alter the thinking. I mean, it is possible, but you just have to be a little careful because you're going down a slippery slope
Yes.
with the hormonal changes and everything else because you go into fight or flight.
Yes. And so back to the self-talk, if that is something those um and well, I don't want to tell your story, so I'm gonna let you tell your story, but
Let me tell it.
okay.
So everybody, so everybody understands, I said it was a blessing earlier that I was ignorant. This part is not a blessing because as I was growing up, and everybody, if you've been following us, you know the problems I had with my dad, and I wanted to make him proud. And well, I had a real problem with anger, but cursing was not a problem for me as a young man, as a teenager. And if I missed a shot, I would curse. And I realized as I started, I knew I wanted to try out and play for in college, University of Illinois, and I said, I got to get a handle on this because I've got gutter gums. I mean, I'm in the gutter with my mouth half the time, and this isn't helping me, and people don't like me, and I've got to change this. So this isn't the solution. But what I did instead of cursing, I said, okay, what am I going to come up with? I got to say something because this is the ignorance because I didn't know what to do. I didn't, there was no such thing as sports psychology when I'm a teenager. And so I said, all right, I'll just use my name, but I'll add an SON to it. So instead of cursing, I would miss an easy shot and I'd go, Jackson! And nobody knew that I was so pissed off. Nobody knew that I was so angry, but everybody loved it. And then and what's ironic is my son, bless his heart, that's his middle name now, is Jackson.
I love that
So,
last little bit.
so that came full circle. But but the problem is everybody, I still had the outburst. I still had Jackson just became the safe way of expressing myself. So I still had work to do. That wasn't the out. I want everybody to understand that. So I still had to reframe, and I had to learn how to reframe that still, even though I changed the wording coming out of my mouth.
The intention or the learning opportunity here is to be able to channel that.
Hmm.
And the way we channel an emotion of anger or frustration or fear, there's two ways. One is body to mind, so something you do to your body that then impacts the mind, your self-talk, which then, influences your emotions, but the other way is mind to body. And to come up with an affirmation or self-talk that you've already prepared so that you've been training at it. And then when you do have, those feelings of disappointment in yourself of, I suck, or this is a catastrophe, or all these thoughts that you have in the moment that if you really sit down, aren't 100% the truth, but in the moment you believe them 100%. What you want to be able to do is have an affirmation that you've trained that allows you to channel that energy, because it's energy. That's all it is
Mhm.
to channel that energy away from that threat into a challenge, which is something that we talk about all the time. And that's why, if we go back to selectively choosing your affirmations, please don't just choose an affirmation that everyone else uses, because we're all different. And if you even have a favorite, if you one of your mentors uses an affirmation and it works for them, even though they're your mentor, it still may not work for you. It's just words. And if you don't buy into those words, they're not going to do anything for you. So you have to choose your self-talk and your affirmations that you actually can buy into. There's something about that you can believe in, and then it'll start working for you.
Yeah, that's great. What I say to the ladies that I coach, I volunteer to coach in my community, the ladies league tennis team. And I tell them, I've often said this, I said, you've got to find a word that works with you that will help you get in the right rhythm for your stroke or whatever it is we're working on. But I said, you have to find the word. I can't tell you the word because I don't know what's going to resonate with you and what's going to help you. It's my word, it's not your word. So I actually do that. The other thing, Haley, that I think is really another thing that I've done that might be helpful to people is before you berate yourself, consider that you're not talking to you because like an out of body experience and a really good friend just did the same thing that you just did. And what would you say to your good friend? Would you say you really suck? I mean, you're dead in the water, dude. I mean, you wouldn't talk like that. What would you say to your good friend? I think I don't know. I think that's pretty powerful.
It is something that a lot of people talk about. I will tell you my one hesitation with it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think I'm not nice. I'm not kind enough to myself, and sometimes I think I'm too kind to other people. So neither one is getting good coaching.
I think the way I've done this with people now as I reflect on it as well. I think like I would say, nah, it wasn't your best day.
Right.
I would say something like that. It wasn't your best day. And but that gave the opening that there was still hope. It wasn't like you don't have a shot. I mean, it just wasn't your best day today.
I much prefer that personally, my humble opinion. I much prefer that. If I see a good friend being really upset, I was just in a golf tournament last week with a dear friend of mine, and I really believe that she was engaging in distorted thinking.
Hmm.
So she used the word disastrous, and I just asked her to question that word. I didn't say, no, you played great, because she didn't.
Great.
But neither did I, but that's not the point. We're talking about her, not me. But
It's about her right now. It's all about her.
but but just like, come on, it wasn't disastrous. So the same thing, like what you just said. So I think honesty is really the best policy. And so if as a friend, if Jack, I would want you to be real honest with me. And so then I would hope that if I want people who I trust and people who I look up to and people who I'm really open to listening to, I want them to be honest with me. So then why can't I be honest with myself?
Well,
And
I
all of
mean,
this distorted thinking is not honesty.
I think a lot of people, it's that all or none, that catastrophe. I think all these things we're talking about when it comes to self-talk are so critical in the coaching piece.
And then what do you think about this one? Another distorted thought, personalization, meaning it's all on you. So if you miss that last free throw, back to that basketball example, did you just lose the entire game for your team? That would be personalization, making it all about you, even though there was an entire game that was played beforehand,
Mhm.
before that, final point.
Yeah, and I think that happens a lot because it's the most dramatic part of the game, and that's the part where the result happened, not it's not the cause. We tend to, yeah, it could be a symptom of why we lost, but it's not the cause. The cause could have been that we didn't get any rebounds in basketball. The cause could have been that there were too many turnovers. I mean, the cause could have been numerous. It's just that you missed that free throw was a symptom. It wasn't the cause.
Or the flip side, what if you get it in and you win? Did you win the game for your entire team?
But that's what we do, right? That's the other end of catastrophic thinking. Yeah, it's all about me. Oh, yeah.
That's
Uh-huh.
exactly.
If I don't make that, hey,
So
yeah,
so it either goes, yeah, the personalization, it's, I take all the responsibility, like I take all the glory,
yeah,
or I take all the blame,
yeah.
which happens. I mean, we do that to quarterbacks all the time, for example.
Yeah, this has been so good, Haley. Well, we're getting kind of toward the end of our time. Do you have any closing thoughts for our listeners on the idea of self-talk and how they can improve their own self-talk? This is our psychologist, everyone, so bated breath right now.
I'm gonna, yeah, put that pressure on. I really, if we were to sum up everything that we've talked about, I think what you kind of brought us in to this distorted thinking. And I don't know that a lot of people may be watching or listening, because I know that in my experience working with people, that's kind of a new concept.
Mhm.
So I think it's really a good idea to kind of pay attention to the words Jack used with catastrophizing and generalizing and polarizing and personalizing and just really understand that sometimes we're not really being honest with ourselves. And I don't think we need to always wave pom-poms. I don't think that we always need to, positive, positive, positive. But productive self-talk is where you're really looking at the situation and pulling out the good and pulling out the areas of improvement and really being honest with yourself. And then the second piece is when you do choose your affirmation, you do choose your mantra, because there's so many out there, it's not that you can't use one that you've heard someone else use. It's not what we're saying. But if you choose to use it, make sure that it really resonates with you. And there's something in those words that you already believe in about yourself or about your situation. So you don't have to fake anything. And then if you can just believe in one little part, that belief will grow and grow and grow and then turn into bigger action.
This has really been powerful. So everyone, as we close, Haley and I just want you all to be aware that if this resonates with you, our colleagues, we're both affiliated with Evolve Leadership, and if this affiliate, like the emotional, the mental, the spiritual piece of all this in learning and performance, if this is of interest to you, please reach out to them. Again, it's Evolve Leadership, and if you're interested in what in our work, Haley's the author of her book Personal Podium, which I've gotten behind 100%, and my memoir came out this year called Mountains Within. We'd love for you to take a look at those if you'd find them helpful. But gosh, Haley, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much. Looking forward to our next episode.
See you, Jack. Thanks. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everybody.